Ahoy, crew! This is the Steam Nerd, and I wanted to talk about the PTB. I'll be putting a video up of me playing the game as the new killer, the artist, and I wanted to talk about how I feel about everything. I kind of was trying to analyze the map and the killer and, some of the survivor perks all in mid-game, and my thoughts were a bubble of messy bullshit that just doesn't actually make sense. After playing some of the games, I feel very different than what I was describing in the games. So, yeah, I wanted to talk about the new killer and the new survivors perks, specifically, because obviously the new survivor himself is not much more than a skin when it comes down to it. And of course the new map, which at first I was like, it's so daytime, but it's kind of like sunset if you look at it, and I kind of don't hate it. I don't dislike it. I like the map itself. I think it's very pretty. I don't like the main building. I think there's a lot to work with for survivors in the main building, but I suppose that's to be expected. In the main building, they always tend to be a little bit more on the side of survivors, at least in the main building, because that's where they're supposed to get the most advantage. But of course, once you clear out the main building, it's a lot of, it's straight lines that just don't do much for them, which is really nice, because it saves us all just a little bit as far as chasing people in there. Though I think you can definitely lose the game just by chasing around that main building the wrong way. It's really big, and it feels like a giant shack in some senses. With that said, overall, I think the map's pretty balanced. I think while being a larger looking map, it's not that bad. It's got a lot of loops around. It's got some openness, so for, say, Huntress and Trickster, I think it's going to do very, very good things. And obviously, for the new killer, I think she's fucking cool. I actually absolutely love every piece of design on this new killer. I like how she looks. I like how her power works. I like how her M1 is. I just like how it looks. It's kind of cool. And I think she's got some of the most interesting audio cues in the entire game. She sounds like she's a crow, which I think is appropriate at the end of the day. She moves around the map kind of average speed. Not really that overly anything major to talk about at the end of the day when it comes down to her. I'm just opening some stuff in the background so I can read certain things. Her name is Carmina Mora. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. The artist. And she's considered intermediate, and I think she's got a little more intricacy than intermediate would lead on for us. Because, at the beginning you're like, oh, power, you can damage if you hit twice with it. Cool, awesome. It's not exactly easy to hit twice with her power right away. You're gonna have to figure out how to get about doing that. And it never happened for me during the games that I was able to play. I couldn't get there, which is why I'm excited for her to come out and there not be a PTB when I can get into matches a little bit quicker and get to practice her more and more and more and more, because honestly, I really think I want to get good at this particular killer because she is fan-fucking-tastic. So her power is Birds of Torment. She sets up dire crows to attack with, and I like them. I think they're pretty cool. I think, there's a little bit of counterplay for the survivors where you can walk through one of them, but you can't walk through two in a row unless they're really close. If they're really close, you could probably use the bird iframes. I'm going to call them bird iframes because they only affect the birds not hurting you. So there's a little bit of iframes so that the artist can't just stack 3 on top of them and then you walk through and you basically die, because that would be ridiculous. Her new perks in particular are Grim Embrace, Scourge Hook Pain Resonance, and Pentimento. And now I went over these on stream, but essentially I'm going to go over them quickly. Grim Embrace is a 4-token hooking-based perk. So every time you hook a survivor for the first time, you are going to get a token. Once you get all 4 tokens, every single generator is going to get blocked for 20 seconds, and the Obsession's aura is going to be revealed to you for 4 whole seconds. I think this is kind of cool. I think that good portion of killers might not make use out of this every single match. It's definitely, you know, if you get that one good survivor, they're going to throw a wrench in this plan. You know, that one really good survivor who stays out of your grasp, or that one really good at stealth survivor is going to make this perk a little harder to use. But I think overall value of it, I mean, 20 seconds, they can't do gens, and you get to see the obsession for the next 4 seconds, is kind of good. It encourages them to rush generators a little bit more if they know it's there, which they shouldn't, because who would? It doesn't show itself in any capacity as the survivors, so you really, really wouldn't know. Then there's Scourge Hook Pain Resonance. If you remember Scourge Hook, Gift of Pain, which is a perk for the Pinhead. I call him the Pinhead. He is the Cenobite. Which essentially means that there's going to be hooks in the trial that are Scourged hooks. This will spawn 4 of them. I didn't see what the synergy between those two is, whether those are the same hooks or whether they're different hooks. I would assume that they're supposed to be the same hook, similar to how boons just kind of stack. And anytime a survivor is hooked on one of these Scourge hooks, the generator with the most progress explodes, instantly losing 9%, and will start to regress. Survivors repairing the generator will scream, revealing their location. I think this is probably her most useful perk, despite what the next perk is going to say. I think this perk's going to be very, very, very interesting to watch. I don't know if it's going to keep 9% when the PTB is over. We will see. Hex Pentimento, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly because I have no fucking clue. But basically, destroyed totems aren't a big deal for you. You see the aura of destroyed totems. You can perform a ritual on a destroyed totem to resurrect it as a rekindled totem. So essentially, this is introducing rekindled totems. Every time there is a rekindled totem up until 5, a new effect is going to stack with this perk. Now, initially, I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. This is like the best possible fucking perk to exist right now. But then I remembered that they're not destroying anything with boons, so this perk may just never, ever, ever have value for you if the enemy team is running boons. They're just not going to cleanse totems, and this perk is just not going to give you any value. But in the scenario you get a no-no-no-ed army set, and you aren't running no-ed, bam! Hex Pentimento is in play. Rekindled totems reduce survivors' repair speed by 20%. For the first stack. At the second stack, it's going to reduce their healing by 20%. At the third stack, it's going to reduce their recovery speed being downed by 20%, which means they're going to be on the ground longer, which means this counter's unbreakable, which we'll talk about in a minute, because we got to talk about a new hex, or a new hex, a new boon. At 4 totems rekindled, you are going to reduce the survivor's exit gate opening speed by 20%, so you're going to slow down that end game a little bit. And at 5 rekindled totems, all totems are blocked by the entity. I don't know if that's got a timer on it or if it's permanent, because again, we're playing with a PTB where there's a bunch of people running boons. I didn't even bother running this perk. I honestly don't think I would have gotten any value during the PTB, simply because nobody's breaking totems. They want to use the new boon, which we'll talk about in just a minute. I wanted to go back to the killer for a second and talk about her Cosmetic Look. She's very uniquely bird-like, which I think is pretty fucking awesome. Because she is supposed to be a crow, and it looks like a well of ink at the same time. Everything on her is like ink flowing through her, and she's got the voice box of a bird, and I just want this like big crow gown for her, because that would be so fucking cool. And that's just my little, like, I want this cosmetic for this particular killer. I want like a crow gown of just pure crow feathers that look like crow feathers, like the crows we have in-game. Because what she has right now is really cool, but I think that there's more you can do with her. And I think that this is pretty reserved. And I'm really hopeful for the artistic team at Behavior, because I think there's a lot you can do with this new killer. You can do so much, and I'm so interested to see where they go with all of this and what they do with the new killer in particular. Hopefully she doesn't change a whole lot from the PTB, because honestly, I think she's in a really good balanced spot. My chat initially when I was playing the game was like, oh, she's broken. I've seen games where people just can't play the game. And then I've seen, you know, like, Otz was chasing 3 people at once with her, which is kind of nuts. But that's a whole different aspect. You got to remember that Otz has got the biggest brain in this game, and that the vast majority of players aren't going to be able to make that great of a use out of her. A lot of players are not going to know how to chase multiple people at once, and it probably won't result in every game everybody's being chased constantly, unless you're playing against a really good artist, in which case, I mean, dude, it's like a really good nurse. You just got fucked, dude. But more importantly, she is really balanced. After playing her, I can see all of her weaknesses, and I played against her, and yeah, I was able to exploit them pretty easily. So I think if you get a little bit more used to fighting her, and maybe give her a shot, play her, you'll understand how she functions. I don't think she's broken. I think she's very much balanced. I think she's maybe even more balanced than Nemesis was upon release. And Nemesis, I think a good portion of the community agrees that Nemesis came out in a really, really good spot. So let's go to the Survivor side. Let's talk about Jonah Vasquez. Jonah Vasquez is really cool. I think his design is really nice. I think he looks very cool. I think he's got a very interesting set of stuff, and I think he's going to come out with some really cool cosmetics. I absolutely hate his perks, but that's just me. I just don't... I see... Actually, no, that's a lie. I don't hate his perks. I like a couple of his perks. I don't like his new boon, but I don't think his new boon's going to be that... my initial thought was, oh god, that boon is so broken. And after playing against it and playing with it, nah, not really. I don't think it's that busted. I think it's annoying. I don't think it's busted. So his boon, his perks, his boons, his perks are Overcome, Corrective Action, and Boon Exponential. Now they're aware of an issue in the PTB right now that will probably never make it to live servers where Exponential is stacking. And you don't want that. But Boon Overcome, let's start with, or Boon Overcome. The perk Overcome is a new exhaustion perk. So when you're injured, you retain the movement speed bonus for an additional 2 seconds longer. At first, reading that, it didn't seem like it was going to be that much. But after getting hit at the end of the game and feeling it, yeah, actually, it's a little more than you would expect. I actually went the whole game playing him with this perk, and nobody hit me. I barely got hit until the very, very end. And by barely got hit, I mean I literally did not get hit until the very end. I was just... after playing against the artist, I knew what to do against the artist. So I kind of knew what her weaknesses were, but this artist was a little better with her crows than I was, and I was overly... Like, I lost a couple of games just because I was trying to use her crows and figure them out. And that's just how that is, right? But Overcome causes the exhausted status effect after this for 60 seconds. So I kind of split. I don't know. I don't think it's better than some of the other exhaustion perks. I think because it's an exhaustion perk, it's not as nice as it could be. But I think if it wasn't an exhaustion perk, it'd be fucking ridiculous. So, you know, 2 seconds longer, but then you're exhausted. No dead hard, but you get more distance out of running. So I think it's a pretty even trade at the end of the day. I think it's a decent perk. I don't think it's going to take over for things like dead hard. I think it's definitely going to be a really good beginner perk to give you that extra distance. And speaking of beginner perks, let's talk about a veteran perk for bringing in beginners, which is Corrective Action. So the new perk Corrective Action, you start the trial with 1 token and gain a token up to a maximum of 5 for every great skill check you perform. So if you are a veteran in this game, or you are decently seasoned in this game, this is going to be a really good perk for getting your friends into the game. Because what these tokens do, when a survivor fails a skill check while cooperating with you, 1 token will be consumed, and their failed skill check will become a good skill check. So this is like Technician for other people. You have Technician for other people. And I love it. I love the concept of, oh, I'm decent at this game and I get great skill checks decently often. Or I'm a god and I get great skill checks all the fucking time. So I'm going to bring my newbie friends into the game and I can actually help them out by keeping them from dying if they're on a gen with me. I'm going to run this and like Prove Thyself, and I really love the concept of this this perk. I didn't get to use it in action, unfortunately, but I did look at it, and I really do think that this perk is going to be very, very fun to have for those of us who want to bring other people into the game. And I think that that's always a good thing, to put more perks in the game that aren't necessarily going to be major game players all the time, but are going to allow people to bring other players in. So like this with Prove Thyself is going to be really, really nice, because then if people fail skill checks, at least it's a good skill check. They don't fail the skill check, essentially. And then we get to the boon exponential. So what this boon does, it's called boon exponential, but it might as well be called boon unbreakable, because it essentially does unbreakable. So it's exactly the same as the other boons. It will activate along with them. You can bless a boon totem, soft chimes for 24-meter range, and there'll be a dome for survivors to see. All survivors within the boon totem's range can recover 90% faster and can completely recover from the dying state. So essentially, everybody is going to have an unbreakable effect on them, which is not great, but it's not that bad because it's a boon. If you're in range of the boon, there is a chance that the killer can go and snuff it. Now, if you run this with Unbreakable, I'm certain it's just ungodly fast, and that it's just going to be unpleasant to see in that particular synergistic strategy. But overall, I don't think it's going to be that bad. I think my initial reaction to it was fuck this thing, it's ridiculous. And my newer reaction is, meh, it's okay. I'm certain it'll get run. I'm certain it can get annoying, but only about as annoying as Unbreakable is in of itself. Now, I can see an annoying stacking going on with Circle of Healing, depending on how that synergizes. But again, I never got to see that, since you have to unlock the boon for other people, or you have to get Circle of Healing on Jonah, and I just wasn't lucky. And neither were the survivors I ended up playing with. Not much to say about Jonah. Like I said, I like his design. I like how he looks. I like how he plays, I guess. I like his perks. They're actually quite nice for the most part. I think Overcome and Exponential are okay perks. I think Corrective Action on its own unique level is top tier, and in every other situation is just not going to give you value. Or might give you, like, the best value ever, because you're just like, oh, somebody failed a skill check on this generator I'm working on that is stress. You know, it could come clutch, depending, but I think for the most part, in your average higher level games, you're not really going to be seeing a whole lot of value out of Corrective Action. But, again, for introducing people, or playing with people, or getting shit-faced drunk with people, you're probably going to have a good time using Corrective Action. It's going to be a nice little perk to help you guys out, and prevent the others from failing skill checks around you, which I think is a cute little interaction to have, and a great way for people to be able to bring other people into this game without, you know, just hating how they miss all the skill checks because they're still new and they don't really know how to react to them yet. And then, of course, Overcome, which I think, again, it's not going to be your best exhaustion perk, but it is going to be a very good early exhaustion perk for people to unlock. So if people go after Jonah Vasquez because they like the look of the artist, I think they're going to have a good time, especially if they're new with Overcome, and Exponential as well. I think they'll have a pretty good time with that boon, because it is basically Unbreakable that you can just put down. It's a little extra work, which is why I think it's okay, and it's a boon, so it can be destroyed, so fine. I think we overreact to boons in general a little bit, because Boon Circle of Healing started so busted, and is still a little bit, a lot of it concerning, especially for killers, because the reality is, we all know, the true best item to bring in the game for countering most killers is probably going to be a medkit, so you can heal. The last thing to talk about is the map. Once again, like I said, it has good loops. I think it looks pretty, and from a design perspective, I love seeing the little bits of ink flying upwards from the ground. I think it's really cool. I kind of wish it was a little more nighttime, but at the same time, I really like that they're going for a different time of day than just day or night, because you have cold wind during the day and everything else during night. And then, like, what other maps are there's like this, what is it? I think it's Midwich is kind of bright in the middle, but then it's mostly indoors, and then there's a bunch of indoor maps, so there is that. But this kind of does the whole sunset thing, and I kind of like it. It's on a plane of its own if you haven't seen it. I mean, you probably can see it in the video that's playing, because like I said, that's my gameplay. That was the one where I ended up kind of clutching it at the end. And I was still confused on how the artist's power works. I was misunderstanding that, I thought that, you know, a couple of things were supposed to work a little different. I'd misread. And playing more and getting more understanding of her has helped me figure out what her power functions like. And I'm really, really excited for her to be released in full for everybody this November. So thank you guys so much for stopping by. Thank you, crew. Appreciate you all. Consider leaving me a sub or going and seeing me on Twitch and liking the video. Have a wonderful day, guys. Thank you so much.